I first went into college, I was artistically broken. I was stuck doing the same chapter in a comic over and over again. My drawings and paintings weren't improving, and I was in a course I didn't want to be in. Alas, I, of course, burnt out and stopped digital painting for the most part to focus on traditional drawing and painting seriously, learning the fundamentals and eventually improving. But a year would pass by, and after all the improvements I've made, I was still lacking my goal, which was to tell a story. Now, I go over this in my video Escaping Beginner Hell, but to cut a long story short, I had to break my cycle of self-sabotage due to a feeling of inferiority born out of being a beginner, took a year of practice as said beforehand, and eventually made my first completed webcomic, Dream Journal. But even during such a momentous occasion, before I completed Dream Journal, I was in this sort of limbo where I had developed adequate skill, but purpose was unclear at that time. Because during that year of seriously practicing art, my goal and purpose were very much aligned, which was just to get good at drawing and painting. But as the months, eventually year, went on, improvement was a process now incorporated into everyday life, and so I was left with all the practice and prowess, but no meaningful goal or project for it to work on. I felt this deep empty feeling during my first semester of second-year college, where in addition to the aimless study and practice of drawing and painting was the realization that there was no going back to study the fine arts. I was knee-deep into the medical technology course. I felt numb, hollow, and anxious, which developed into a physical problem where I couldn't sleep at night because every time I would lie down, turn off the lights, and try to go to sleep, my heart suddenly races and I'm left eternally lying down until dawn, conscious all the way through. It was a nightmare, along with exams, paperwork, and whatnot. After one grueling major exam in biostatistics, I felt really down because on that day, it was my birthday in 2019, and I had just received a failing score. To cheer myself up, I bought a giant sketchbook as a gift to myself, which actually still exists today. And before going to bed that night, after my daily sketching and personal art studies, I suddenly had the urge to get my tablet and just start painting in Photoshop, impromptu. This led me to a new habit for a while, where I would paint something digitally, no line work, no reference, no reason, just release my emotion and create pieces of pure expression, which to no wonder, my first painting was of a waterfall. For this one and the ones that followed, I used a bunch of random brushes, sculpting a scene, rocks, water, clouds, sky, and even a bridge. There was no anxiety of not properly following a reference. I poured out my emotions completely. The following painting was of a forest with a snow floor, autumn leaves, and reddish background, reminiscent of Samurai Jack environments. It was warm, cozy, and calm, a feeling of peace. The next one was of a lighthouse in a stormy mountainous area, a representation of being isolated in a chaotic environment, not so different from my situation at that time. Then, a painting of a cabin in the woods, very Bob Ross inspired, trying to keep to a calm demeanor. This was followed by a painting of a volcano man, standing alone, menacing, in a hellish environment, a drastic shift from the lighthouse in the snowstorm, yet shares a strong essential emotion of isolation and chaos. The next painting I titled Church, a solid block of color with ornaments inspired by my own hometown church that I go to. Some sort of divine intervention, I suppose. Next was another painting of a forest near a body of water this time, peaceful and nourishing. Then a lonely cabin in the middle of plains and mountains. This painting in particular expressed a noticeable loneliness, with an exaggeration in perspective, green and filling, but lonely. Next was another tower, but this time dark in misty mountains, with only faint glowing embers from below giving light, perhaps a representation of my passion at that time, scarce but ever present. And finally, a painting of a desert. It wasn't as green and flourishing like with my forests and plains, menacing and hot like the volcano and mist, nor chaotic and isolated like the lighthouse in a snowstorm, but cool, empty, and lit by the moon. A caressing breeze in an empty environment, but with a bright light to see all. I am unsure of what it fully meant, but all I know is that there was hope, at least a sign of it. So practicing drawing or painting endlessly without a goal or project makes the practice and study futile as time moves on, like a bullet without direction, just ricocheting and maybe even hitting you back. Be it a skill, trade, or discipline habit, having a goal serves as fertile ground for one to grow in, so that he or she may help others. Doing these depression paintings gave me time and material to reflect on my situation during such confusing moments. Giving my mind the space to properly nurture thought in order to move forward with proper intent and plan in mind. It was more or less a process of clearing my mind in a way. And so those were my depression paintings, a mini side quest if you will on my journey in art, or perhaps a necessary step, who knows. With that being said, I hope these experiences help you on your way, and remember, know that when you set yourself out there to do something grand, no one will ever have the right to judge you for not having tried.